everyone, Jim here from Mystery and Mayhem. I hope you're all doing great today, and I hope you're reading all kinds of Sherlock Holmes stuff this month. I know depending on when you started, since the month started on a Thursday, this could be your and you decided to start on the Monday after, this could be your second week or your third week. So for me, it's my third week. I will be reading this book, The Shadow of Reichenbach Falls by John R. King. That's the one I'll be reading. I started with the long canon, reading Sign of the Four. Then last week I read The Best of Sherlock Holmes, which included Arthur Conan Doyle's 12 favorite Sherlock Holmes stories. So I know it's easy to get overexhausted on Sherlock Holmes. You know, if you're reading too much of a character or a series, I mean, it's easy to become exhausted. So I hope you guys, are hanging in there for Sherlock Holmes. And I know when we started this, I mean, personally, I didn't really think of it, but I know it's followed up with March Mystery Madness. So that's a lot of mystery in 2 months. But I mean, personally, for me, that's good because I'm all about mystery too, mystery and mayhem, but I know for others it might be a little too much mystery. So, but anyway, I hope you're doing okay and you're still enjoying it. Today, I just wanted to show you some paperbacks on my shelf. I know I promised to do a deep dive on my Sherlock Holmes shelf. This shelf behind me is all Sherlock Holmes except for the very bottom row. So I've got six rows here of Sherlock Holmes books. I won't go through them all today, but I thought I would share with you some of the paperbacks I have on my shelf, and show you some pastiches that you might want to read. I know some people really don't know what to read for pastiche, so maybe if I show you a few of these, it'll give you a few ideas as to what you can read for the pastiche week. So let's get started. These books over here are all canon, so I won't show you too many of them. I've got, I'll show you some. I've got a couple of these movie or TV series editions with Jeremy Brett on the cover, and I love these. I only have 2 of them. And these 2 here are the complete Sherlock Holmes. Arthur Conan Doyle, what he wrote for about Sherlock Holmes are all in these 2 volumes, and they're still available at the store. I was actually at the bookstore yesterday, and there was these 2 volumes in a boxed set. So if you guys want everything written by Arthur Conan Doyle, all the canonical stories, you could go to the store and buy these 2 for a fairly reasonable price. And I've got these ones here, which are the canonical stories too, but these are lovely covers. And I've got 4 of these. Looks like Audrey Hepburn on the cover there is Irene Adler. These are nice to have too, and I found these over the years at the used bookstores, and I think they were probably from the 80s. There's Moriarty and Holmes there on the cover. Neat cover. These were from 1975. So yeah, they're a little tougher to find now. But anyway, let's get into the rest of what I have on my shelf. These 4 books are part of the Otto Penzler Sherlock Holmes library. Now there was nine in the series altogether. They're scholarly essays by and about Sherlock Holmes and the stories and the characters. So I've got 4, then there's 9 altogether. But these are very, very cool books from the Otto Penzler library. I'm just happy to have them. This one's called Holmes and Watson by S.C. Roberts. He was a Sherlock Holmes scholar. This one is called My Dear Holmes, Studies in Sherlock by Gavin Brend. And this is by Vincent Starrett, The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. This is a biography of Sherlock Holmes. And Vincent Starrett is a very famous Sherlock Holmes scholar. So that's nice to have. I think I have another copy of this on my shelf. But that's a Frederick Dorr Steele artwork on the cover. And that's very nice to have. I'm glad to have that. And this one is called 17 Steps to 221B, a Sherlockian collection by English writers. James Edward Holyroyd, editor. And that's just cool to have. So I think now we're getting into some pastiches. I've got some here by Nicholas Meyer, who has done a few Sherlock Holmes novels. I've got two copies of the 7% Solution. There's the movie cover, Nicole Williamson as Sherlock Holmes, and Robert Duvall as Watson, oddly enough, and Alan Arkin as Sigmund Freud. And here's the original cover, which I love. That's one of my favorite interpretations of Sherlock Holmes right there, artistic interpretations. What a great cover that is. And that's a good story. And he also wrote this one, The West End Horror, where he meets, I do believe, Bram Stoker and Oscar Wilde in this book. And there's the inside artwork. So that's just kind of cool to have, you know. And if you want to read that for pastiche, you know, you won't regret it. Okay, so we've got, I'll show you this one first, The Exploits of Sherlock Holmes by Adrian Conan Doyle and John Dixon Carr. Now, these followed up the Sherlock Holmes stories after Arthur Conan Doyle died, and his son compiled these stories. You know, it says, I mean, they're canonical. They're very good. And I think my opinion is that most of them were written by John Dixon Carr. I mean, it says here that some were written by Adrian Conan Doyle, but for some reason I kind of doubt it. But if anybody else knows more about that, just let me know in the comments below. But that's worth picking up. My copy's a little beat up. I wish I had another one. But yeah, very, very cool stories in here. And this one is a movie adaptation of Murder by Decree, where Sherlock Holmes goes up against Jack the Ripper. And that's Christopher Plummer as Sherlock Holmes and James Mason as Watson. And very good movie, I think from the 70s. So yeah, I was happy to get that one. There's a few photos in here from the movie. There's James Mason as Watson. Yeah, and I think that's Inspector Lestrade there. Anyway, that's in really good shape, that book. I might have to reread that one of these days. Let's see what else we have. This one's kind of cool. This is a Choose Your Own Adventure book, Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes Solo Mysteries, and this one's called The Dynamiters by Milt Crichton. And that's, I mean, you guys know how Choose Your Own Adventure books work, you know. So that's, I think there's, as far as I know, there's maybe 5 in the series. I only have the one. But yeah, that's kind of fun to have. This here is a biography by W.S. Baring Gould, Sherlock Holmes of Baker Street. And W.S. Baring Gould was the man responsible for these 2 annotated Sherlock Holmes volumes, which to me are still the definitive annotated Sherlock Holmes volumes. But this is considered the definitive biography by a lot of Sherlock Holmes readers and scholars, even to this day. Even though there's been many, you'll see later, there's been many biographies written about Sherlock Holmes. But this one's a lot of fun. This one is by L.B. Greenwood, called Sherlock Holmes and the Case of the Raleigh Legacy. And this paperback's in really good condition. I've got 2 of them, but this one's in really nice condition. And that's just your standard pastiche novel. I think it might have been reprinted in the Titan books recently, but I could be wrong on that. I've only got a few of them on my shelf, but that's just a neat cover. This one is called Sherlock Holmes and the Ice Palace Murders by Larry Millett. And this is where Sherlock Holmes visits the United States. He actually goes to St. Paul's, Minnesota, I'm assuming, in 1896, and visits the Winter Carnival there. And of course, he probably runs into all kind of mystery and mayhem while he's there. But that's just a nice new volume. And I think he's probably written others. Let's see. It doesn't say out right there, but I'm sure he's written others too in the series. And it's always kind of cool to see Sherlock Holmes out of his element. I mean, I prefer those stories, the canon stories, but when he goes elsewhere, where we're not used to seeing him. That's always kind of a refreshing change too. So we've got Sherlock Holmes' War of the Worlds, where he goes up against H.G. Wells' Martians. And I know that's not to everybody's taste, but they're a lot of fun. And, you know, H.G. Wells was a writer, you know, to the same time as Arthur Conan Doyle, and it almost seems fitting, you know, that Sherlock Holmes, you know, in an alternate world and the Martians invaded. I mean, what would Sherlock Holmes have been doing when that happened? So that's by Manly Wade Wellman and his son Wade Wellman. A lot of fun, and that was reprinted in the Titan books. So that's well worth looking for if you want to read a cool pastiche novel. A lot of fun. These next two are adaptations of movies. This is a Gene Wilder movie, The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother. And there's Gene Wilder and Madeline Kahn on the cover, and he played Sherlock Holmes' brother Sigerson Holmes. And I mean, it was a lot of fun. And if I remember correctly in the movie, Sherlock Holmes and Watson did make an appearance, and I think they were the actors who played Holmes and Watson in The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, I mean, you see movies like this, you just see little Easter eggs. They throw little Easter eggs in there, which make it, you know, even more fun, you know. And yeah, so that's kind of fun and might be worth looking into. A lot of fun to read. This movie here wasn't the greatest movie, to be honest, but I'm glad I have the paperback. Sherlock Holmes in New York, and there's Roger Moore as Holmes and Patrick Macnee as Watson right there. So that's yeah, that's kind of fun to have. Little tiny paperback adaptation by D.R. Benson. This is a very neat cover, Sherlock Holmes' Greatest Adventure, The Earthquake Machine, by Austin Mitchelson and Nicholas Utekin. And there's Sherlock Holmes on the cover in a very kind of James Bondian event going on there, you know, pose. That's kind of cool. And that's this might have been reprinted as well in the Titan books, if I remember correctly. Again, I could be wrong, but I'm sure this is easy to find. I've seen a couple copies of it on the shelves when I go to the used bookstores. So that's just a neat cover. There's Holmes again, looking all heroic. Okay, let's see here. This one here, an anthology of kind of sci-fi, kind of paranormal kind of stories, Sherlock Holmes in Orbit. And it's a fairly thick paperback, and it's got was authorized by Dame Jean Conan Doyle, apparently, edited by Mike Resnick and Martin H. Greenberg, which are two famous anthologists from the day. And it's got all kinds of stories in here, divided into sections: Holmes in the past, Holmes in the present, Holmes in the future, and Holmes after death. And yeah, so they're a lot of fun. You know, not to everybody's taste, but I enjoy them. And this one is Enter the Lion by Michael P. Hodel and Sean M. Wright. And these next two deal with Jack the Ripper, as Murder by Decree did. This one is A Study in Terror by Ellery Queen. It took me a long time to find this paperback, but I'm glad I have it. And yeah, where Sherlock Holmes goes up against Jack the Ripper, and the two stories are told concurrently. Ellery Queen in the present, and Sherlock Holmes as a flashback story where he's going up against Jack the Ripper. So if you can find that, that's well worth the read right there. And another one where he goes up against Jack the Ripper is called The Last Sherlock Holmes Story by Michael Dibdin. And yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that can still be found elsewhere too. I have another copy of that, a hardcover up top there. So that's kind of cool. These next two. Now, Michael Hardwick is a Sherlockian scholar, and he's written, along with his wife, he's written a biography and a Sherlock Holmes Companion by Michael and Molly Hardwick. And it just tells all about Sherlock Holmes and the cases and who's who in the books, and that's a neat little hardcover to have. But he wrote these two books, The Revenge of the Hound, which is a sequel to The Hound of the Baskervilles. And that's just a good long story. Very, very, very good. I really enjoyed that one. And one I haven't read yet, but this is another one he read called Prisoner of the Devil by Michael Hardwick. And this deals with the Alfred Dreyfus case, you know, and it gets into that, and it's very, you know, political and all kinds of intrigue and all that. But again, I haven't read it, so I can't really say whether it's very good or not. But, you know, that was very good, so I'm sure this is just as good. So take a look for that. I found that the other day, so I'm sure you might even be able to find that yourself. Now these, okay, this is by Michael and Molly Hardwick again, the biography I mentioned. This is an adaptation of the movie, actually, The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. This is a novelization of the movie. And look at that neat cover. Nice silhouette of Sherlock Holmes. And this is another copy of The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes by Vincent Starrett, which is a biography of Holmes. And we're almost at the end. Another biography by Michael Harrison called The World of Sherlock Holmes in this paperback edition. That was, I don't know if you'd find that. I'm sure you could find that somewhere, but some of these might be hard to find now. This is another biography by June Thompson, Holmes and Watson. And yeah, I'm sure a few of these conflict, these biographies. I mean, there's always points of contention regarding his timelines and certain dates, and you know, whether you know, whether Watson was married once or twice or three times, or you know, where he was wounded, and you know, if his name was James or John, that kind of thing. You know, so all these biographies try to clear that up, but since there's so many, it just kind of tends to muddy the water even more. So yeah, that's it for paperbacks for Sherlock Holmes. I've got that on my shelf as well, the quotable Sherlock Holmes, just, you know, quotes from all the canon, and just a couple other books by Arthur Conan Doyle himself, some of his historic novels, The Maricot Deep and The Tragedy of the Carrasco. So yeah, those are nice to have, and you know, eventually I'll get up to the other shelves and we'll delve into them. But yeah, I just wanted to share them with you guys. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, we're doing Sherlock Holmes. We're halfway through the month now, and I hope you guys again aren't getting too exhausted with Sherlock Holmes stuff. I seem to be. I mean, we seem to be getting a lot of positive feedback on them, and a lot of people are, you know, getting back into Sherlock Holmes or reading Sherlock Holmes for the first time. So that just makes me happy, and yeah, so I will let you go. And I hope you guys have a good upcoming week, and we'll talk to you soon. Keep reading.